to Monkey Off My Backlog, the podcast where we exorcise our pop culture demons by tackling our media to-do lists 1 week at a time. I'm your host, Tessa, and with me are my co-hosts, Andy Bowman.
Hello.
And Dr. Sam Morris.
Hello.
This week, Sam smashes some pumpkins, Andy gets lost in space, and I need a bigger boat. All right, how are you guys doing this week?
Do you really need a bigger boat? Does anyone need a boat?
Tessa's wanting to get into that yacht game.
Yeah, that fancy yacht game. It'll make more sense when it comes back to me. So, one of the things that I was thinking about since last week, I was thinking about what Andy said when he was talking about watching High and Low by Kurosawa, that it was his first Kurosawa film, even though he had seen Seven Samurai. It was Seven Samurai, right?
Yes.
Earlier during his childhood, early teenage years. And so one of the things that I wanted to bring up in the spirit of pop culture productivity is, do things that you watched as a child or teenager that you would like to watch again as an adult count as part of your backlog? I put this question to the room.
Okay, so what you're talking about is like a planned rewatch.
Yeah, so like for an example, if I watched a film as a child, like the film Willow, for an example, and I haven't watched it since I was a child, but I want to watch it again because I don't remember it, or because I was too young to really fully appreciate it, or you know what I mean. Does that count as part of your backlog?
I mean, I want to say that it does, specifically for Willow, because I made you watch Top Gun for the first time a few years ago, and I just want you to see Iceman in Willow now. I want you to be thinking about that the whole time.
But the thing is, I've technically seen it. I saw it when I was a child. I was terrified by the first scene of that film. But I want to watch it again. So does that count as part of the backlog? Or, you know, like a film you watch as a teenager and you remember it really, really well, but then you watch it again as an adult and you're like, oh, this is real problematic.
So I have to say, I think that any like redoing, right? Any redux of anything, I think it does count. I think that the reason why it does count is because it's trying to think of the right way to phrase it, because you're bringing a new perspective at that point, right?
So is the Seven Samurai on your list?
It's somewhere up there. I'm sure. I don't think it's very high, which is kind of weird because paradoxically, usually the things that I've rewatched and want to watch again are kind of jump up the list pretty quickly, because it's like, oh man, I gotta watch Scott Pilgrim again.
We've been talking about that.
We have been talking about that.
That's on our list too.
Well, yeah, so is there an age cutoff for this? Like, is it anything you watched before the age of 20? Your brain wasn't fully formed enough to truly appreciate it. You didn't have the cultural context to completely understand it.
Yeah, I think that the age cutoff would be probably 2 years prior. I think we as people keep changing, no matter what we want to think. I mean, I think of the terrible monster I was at 23 and 25 and 2 weeks ago. you know, we keep changing, and because we keep changing, and we're never really the same person at almost any point in time again. I think that if you want to rewatch something, you know, just that desire that you want to rewatch it, you're bringing something new to the table, even if that's just a few months of life experience.
Is that different from watching Friends for like the 11th time because you couldn't figure out something else to watch?
Yeah, I think that there's a kind of like an intentionality, a level of an intentionality to your viewing and the way you consume it, right? I put Community on in the background constantly, but I'm not really watching it most of the time. You know, like there's not a level of intentionality or open to dissecting it, right? I do think that there are places for that kind of comfort, right? The places for that, I'm just going to put this on, but I don't think it's the same thing as putting something on your list and taking it off again.
Well, it's like I read, I first read Pride and Prejudice when I was in ninth grade. I distinctly remember it was ninth grade, and I loved it. But reading it again for grad school several years later, like, there was just so much about it that I just did not appreciate in ninth grade, right? Like, there was stuff that went over my head. There was stuff that I learned in the intervening years that sort of colored my experience while reading that particular book. So, yeah, I mean, I think I like that idea of, like, intentionality. Like, I am going to approach this again, like, with not necessarily a critical eye, but, like, with an eye towards, like, I'm a different person. I'm going to have a different perspective on this.
Right. Or also to that point, it can also be a rewatch with someone who has not seen it before.
The best kind of backlog.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You know, like forcing someone to rewatch 30 Rock, especially when you're like at the beginning of like a romantic relationship, right? Like stuff like that is a great moment to like get to know the person, and they're bringing their own worldview and experiences into this rewatch and hopefully talking about it with you as you're going through it.
So
Sam has a fun story about this.
So it's important to know for context that there's just a little detail, fun little detail about myself. I have a sleeping disorder, which makes it super fun to consume pop culture anytime after 7 p.m. So Tessa is a big, huge, giant fan of Underworld.
I love it so much.
So she wanted to, introduce it to me. I was like, okay, that's great.
This was like in the first couple of months of knowing each other.
So as you already can guess, I was horribly embarrassed. She was terribly offended that I fell asleep. Not because the movie's terrible.
It's not just that he fell asleep. He fell asleep like within the first 5 minutes of the film. And I didn't notice he was asleep until the film was over.
I mean, what I saw was good.
Tessa, did Sam do the thing where he denied falling asleep?
No, he couldn't deny it. Once he falls asleep, it's very difficult to wake him up.
Yeah.
Okay. Because my wife will do that. She fall asleep watching something and like, hey, were you asleep? No, I'm fine. We can keep watching.
So you're gonna hear about Underworld, I think, pretty soon.
Ah, sweet.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. Also, another victim of my sleeping disorder is the time in college where we watched Taxi Driver. So I don't know.
So things Sam has fallen asleep during also count as part of his backlog.
Yes. It's a big list.
All right, well, let's move to the main event of the podcast. Andy, tell us what monkey you consumed this week. Oh, that sounds like you ate a monkey.
Right. No. Monkey I catapulted off my back.
What monkey did you get off your back?
I think we should say catapulted. I like catapulted.
Catapulted.
Right? Right. Bring in another animal here, right? The cat. Catapult. Anyway, I played a game that has been on my Steam library for quite a while called Event Zero. It is a fascinating game about... It takes place in a slightly alternative world where humanity around the 70s actually got a bit more into space and was able to do more things in space. So everything in this game has that kind of alien aesthetic of, yes, it's futuristic, but all this stuff was made in the 80s. So it's what would you call that look? Retrofuturism, I think, maybe.
Nostradamus chic.
Nostradamus chic. Okay. And it is a game about your spaceship going through some stuff, and your character gets into a escape pod and goes drifting off into space and is found by a derelict spaceship, and you get on the spaceship, and of course the only thing that's left on the spaceship is a AI named Kaizen. It is then when you realize that the game only has two means of move. So it has to be on the computer. You have your mouse, which is your entire movement, right? You click to walk forward, you click the other button to walk backward, and then you have your entire keyboard. And the entire premise of this game is you're going around and you are actively talking and communicating with the AI, trying to solve the problems.
Is the AI helpful? Tell us about this AI.
Okay, so the AI is only available at these terminals. The AI, it will help you. It will also kind of try to talk to you, kind of try to get to know you a little bit, right? It's very much like, for those of you who are as old as I am, Smarter Child or any other AOL aimbot, right? There's this feeling that you're talking to an AI, but it will say things like, "Oh, well, that hurts my feelings."
Oh.
Or, "Oh, the previous human that was on the ship loved to talk to me. You just like to read."
That's some shade.
Right,
That's
right.
some real
It is a
shade.
passive aggressive hail from Space Odyssey.
You really gotta like passive aggressive artificial intelligence.
So instead of trying to kill you, it'll just throw shade at you.
Just snark
Basically,
you to
just
death.
snark you to death.
That's kind of a part of the thing with this game is, you come on this ship. The game takes place in the year 2012, but the spaceship that you're on has been somewhere in space since 1987, and there's no people there, and the AI is kind of shady about what happened to those people.
Ooh. So it's also kind of like a mystery game. Like you're trying to figure out what happened.
It is a little bit of a mystery game. It's a very short game. It's only about 3 hours long, so I can't really talk about it too much, but you are alone in this spaceship and you really only have this AI to talk with, and it's fascinating. There are some puzzles to solve. You got to kind of figure things out, but your whole goal is, as the AI tells you right at the beginning, hey, I want to take you back to Earth, but in order to get anywhere near Earth, I need you to destroy my singularity drive. My singularity drive, for whatever reason, the AI's programming will not allow it to come to Earth while that singularity drive is still active. And this is when the, kind of questions about how much is the AI telling me that's true. And it has a little bit of Portal in it, right? A little bit of GLaDOS.
I love AIs that insult me while I'm trying to solve puzzles.
It's never that insulting. It keeps saying how much it trusts you. I'm at the very end, and it keeps saying, I keep asking it things like, well, what happened to person X? And it says things like, won't it be great to get back to Earth? Smiley face.
Can we all agree, though, just that GLaDOS is like the meanest AI in all of video games?
Yeah.
I may have been scarred by that.
Instead of saying, I can't let you do that, she says, oh, I can let you do that, but I won't. Because I don't like you.
So what's your rec on this game?
So because it is short, it is a more difficult to recommend. You do a very, very slight amount of coding. And the game will walk you through how to code, because you're dealing with mostly a text-based terminal when you get around to actually talking to the AI, right? Each room has a old 1980s computer monitor, and you go up to it and then you just start typing. I recommend it. It is a very qualified recommendation. Like, if what I just said really appeals to you, if you like the idea of going into and befriending an AI and kind of dealing with just a little bit of loneliness and isolation in space, definitely play it. It's very cool, very interesting, and very unique from a gameplay perspective.
Very cool.
Cool. And it's on Steam, you say?
It is on Steam. I would recommend waiting for a sale. Like I said, it's only about 3 hours long, so it does make it really hard to drop $20 on. Anyway, we should probably talk about what you got yourself into, Sam. What did you do this week?
I got myself into something that has been on my list for, well, since 2011. I listened to the deluxe reissue of Smashing Pumpkins' debut album, Gish. And to be very clear, I have heard this album before. I am specifically talking about the reissue that came out in 2011. And we'll talk about why that's important here in a little bit. Smashing Pumpkins, you have probably, everyone listening has probably heard of Smashing Pumpkins. You may have seen their Crazy Town lead singer Billy Corgan, who bought a wrestling federation, MySpace cat person, just, But before all that, he was part of a 4-person rock and roll group out of Chicago, and Gish, their debut album, came out in 1991. Some really neat things about this album, if you're into music at all, or music from the 90s specifically. So Gish was recorded in the first part of 1991 by Butch Vig, who turned around the next month and produced Nirvana's Nevermind. The next month. And so it's this really sharp, great album directed by Butch Vig, who's, again, a great producer, and Billy Corgan himself, who is many things, but one of them is a mastermind, a genius. This was one of the first remasters that Billy Corgan put together for the catalog in 2011. It comes with not just a remastered version of the album, but also a rarities disc, which is a must when you reissue an album, and a DVD.
And a DVD, you say? And
a DVD, I say.
Okay. Well, so what is the deal with like remasters, reissues? Because I'm I'll call myself a media music guy. Like I'm fine with whatever I can stream off of a platform we will not discuss, because I will not buzz market this platform.
Well, I guess I was going to at the end, but I won't, since you don't. But what I will say, okay, so reissues and remasters are contentious topics, let's just say. The issue with reissues is, I bought this album once. You want me to buy it again? Why? Often that's why you see things like a DVD or a disc of rarities. It's an enticement to get somebody to buy something again. The remastered debate is a separate debate. I once had a friend who said, "Oh, you really want to hear this album remastered?" And then he turned the volume up. He said, "There you go. I fixed it for you." There are good reissues, there are good remasters, there are bad reissues and bad remasters. There are good reissues that have bad remasters. I mean, you take your pick. One thing that I can say about this particular remaster is that it was engineered by Bob Ludwig. And if you don't know Bob Ludwig's name, if you're not a compulsive reader of liner notes like I am, this man is an engineer who has worked with Nirvana, Queen, U2, Beck, Guns N' Roses, Tori Amos, Daft Punk, Radiohead, the Alabama Shakes, Frank Ocean, and I'm just tired of naming people. He's also involved in remasters of the catalog of Sly and the Family Stone, Led Zeppelin, Creedence Clearwater Revival, the Rolling Stones, Dire Straits. So this guy's got cred. So now you have 3 of the smartest people in the music biz in terms of recording, mastering, and engineering working on something. So you've got a good remaster here that just sounds great. The other question here that you brought up, Andy, is physical media. I will not try to convert anybody on physical media, because really, you listen to music how you listen to it. However, having said that, when I have our family's original Magnavox CD player from the 1980s. We were an early adopter. It still works. I have it hooked up to a nice Yamaha amplifier and some Bose speakers, and I can tell you this thing sounds great. It sounds better than it sounds on music streaming, but it sounds pretty good on music streaming too. Definitely better than the original sounded.
All right. I mean, what's your opinion on the album? Also, have you listened to the original since 2011 and just waited till the remaster, or have you put off all Gish?
I have certainly listened to the remastered version of Gish before, without, as we talked about earlier, intentionality. The first three songs on Gish, I Am One, Shiva, and Rhinoceros, is like a really great 3-song run. I rarely ever get deeper into the album than that. And so this was a nice experience in listening to it and realizing that it is a really great collection of songs. Billy Corgan does not think so, by the way. He doesn't have much nice to say about this album. He's wrong, as he is about a great many things, especially things involving himself. But this is a really good collection of songs. The rarity disc, a lot of times you run the risk, a lot of the Cure reissues, the second disc really doesn't have much coherence or much repeat listenability to it. I could listen to this, and I did listen to it for the first time for this. I had held off on listening to it. I could imagine listening to it again. It's got a couple of live things. It has a copy of the original single that Sub Pop released before the debut album, and that was nice to listen to. I love songs that have studio chatter at the beginning and the end. You get to hear Butch Vig a couple of times. The one time that this really falls short is the DVD. Part of the reason I wanted to do this, and I was so excited about doing it for the podcast, is I never watch DVDs if they come in a music box set. I just never do it. And so I did with this one. It's a recording of an early show in 1990, and I mean, you can't really get mad at people for not spending more production value on a show by a new band that could just be nothing. So it's fine. But it's not a very good looking video. The sound mixing isn't great. Billy Corgan's voice is just too much. But it was really fun to see these kids, before they were hooked on various drugs, before they had gone various levels of genius cuckoo, Brian Wilson putting his piano into the sandbox town, and just seeing the four of them play. It was great. Billy Corgan with long hair and a pirate shirt. I mean, it's fun times for everyone.
Okay. Would you say that like listening to this as physical media, like with the whole streaming thing, do you think that physical media makes you sort of have more intentionality when it comes to listening to like an album, like as an artifact, as opposed to like a playlist, which seems to be more of the streaming model?
Yes, I think it does, and I don't listen to a lot of physical media because my really great amplifier is not completely digital and it's dying out, so I can't really listen to it at low volumes, so I tend to bother people. But my uncle really explained it best. He said, when I put on a record, I want a giant wall of sound coming straight at my face, just like as if I was at a live show. He doesn't like listening to headphones. He doesn't want surround sound. He wants to put the record on and be physically assaulted from two speakers in front of him. And I absolutely agree with that.
Okay. So recommend, not recommend?
Absolutely recommend. You can listen to the remaster and the rarities disc on music streaming services.
Okay.
I would also, as an additional recommendation, if you have never heard the Singles soundtrack, the soundtrack from the Cameron Crowe movie Singles, I would absolutely recommend it. One of the best songs from this era of Smashing Pumpkins is on Drown. It is on that soundtrack. There's a slightly different version included on the rarities disc. And before I throw it to Tessa, I just want to ask really fast. I have all of the Smashing Pumpkins reissues, and I'm looking forward to listening to them. So, one of the things that I wonder is when we start doing things in a series, when do we want to hear about those again? Or do we never want to hear what Sam thinks about Smashing Pumpkins ever again?
I think we could give like short updates. Like, oh yeah, like I'm reading the second Percy Jackson book. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right?
What do you think, Andy?
I think maybe like in a month or two.
All right.
Yeah.
Good deal. Yeah, this is 3 discs, 2 CDs, and a DVD. When we get toward Adore, which is the last one he's released, I believe it's 7 discs. So
wow.
things get real eventually. But okay, so enough about me and Smashing Pumpkins. Tessa, you got a bigger boat this week.
I did get a bigger boat. Well, actually, I think the point is they didn't get a bigger boat this week.
Well, it's not about them. It's about you.
It's about
you
me.
Got a bigger boat.
So I, for this week, watched the 1975 classic Jaws, which I had never seen before, ever. I did not know much about it besides, the fact that it was about a shark and that people said that it was one of the greatest thrillers of all time. I decided to watch this one because it is sort of a gap in my monster movie catalog. I love monster movies. I've watched so many of them. This is clearly one of those classic ones that people talk about. It's considered by many people to be one of the greatest thrillers ever made. Joe Hill tweeted about it a couple of months ago when he was listing the movies that he's watched so many times that he could basically cite them. And this is also one of Steven Spielberg's earliest films. It was also one of the highest grossing films until Star Wars came out later that decade. So there's a lot sort of going for it. It is based also on a novel by Peter Benchley, which I think only came out a couple of years before the film did. There wasn't too much of a gap. But it had a huge impact on popular culture, on thrillers and horror films as a genre. And so I just felt like it was a huge gap in my knowledge that I had never seen it.
It's interesting that you call it a monster movie. I never thought of it that way. I think Steven Spielberg movies are a genre all by themselves in my head.
I mean, they kind of are, but I think that there are, and I'll talk about this later, but I think there are definite connections between that movie and some of the other movies that have come out around that time period as well.
So you said that this is one of the big movies in film history. It's iconic, etc., etc. Is it really?
Okay, well, this film suffers from overhype, I think. I mean, if you say it's one of the greatest films ever made, it's really hard to live up to that reputation, especially since the film itself is, I mean, it's a thriller. It's not supposed to be a, high art film at all. And so I think that there's a problem with expectations, especially when you watch it now. I think perhaps when you watched it in 1975, maybe there wasn't a problem with expectations when going into it. But let me tell you some things that I liked about it, that I thought were interesting. The movie is a technical masterpiece. The way that this shark is not shown for a lot of the film is just kind of wonderful. And it's obviously something that's been, or at least tried to be replicated by other horror and thriller makers in the future. The Host is a movie that I think of that does that really well too. Now, part of this was because, and I didn't know this until I did a little bit of research, they made animatronic sharks to represent the shark in this film. And the shark.
His name is Bruce.
His name is Bruce. There were 3 of them. They were all named Bruce after Spielberg's lawyer. It's a great joke. But the thing is that
it's the reason why the shark is Bruce in Finding Nemo.
That makes sense now.
Is that who they're asking not to bring down an electric light?
It's the shark.
Yes, the classic Electric Light Orchestra song, "Don't Bring Me Down." It's Bruce. Bruce the shark.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, well, I guess I should probably give you the premise first. So the premise is pretty straight. I'm all out of order on this one. The premise is pretty straightforward in this movie. There's this summer resort town that's put in jeopardy when a giant great white shark starts attacking beachgoers. And so because of this, aquaphobic police chief Martin Brody, who is played by Roy Schneider, teams up with a marine biologist, played by Richard Dreyfuss, and a professional shark hunter, Robert Shaw, to protect the town and hunt down the shark. So they made these animatronic sharks, but the problem was, and this is sort of why the film is infamous, that the sharks didn't work for most of the filming. They kept breaking down because they weren't made to go in the water. That seems like an oversight, but whatever. But it actually ended up working in Spielberg's favor because he had to end up shooting so much of the movie from the shark's perspective instead of actually showing the shark. And so there's a lot of camera work that's underwater, creeping up on, unsuspecting legs of swimmers. There's a lot of mixing of footage of actual great whites. I think they were filmed down in Australia. There's a couple of shots interspersed there. And honestly, when the animatronic shark does appear on camera, it's not bad. Like, I mean, for 70s, robotics work, it's pretty terrifying. I mean, there's a couple of shots where you're like, okay, that's clearly not real. But like, there's some really good shots of it just sort of coming up out of the water where it's very, very shocking. There are a couple of other things that I wanted to note. It was over budget. Like, it's sort of a cautionary tale in film lore. this monster of a movie that just kept going basically over budget, but that ended up making all this money back. John Williams' score is iconic. Obviously, people love that score. I knew the score before I'd even seen the film. It definitely makes the film 100 times scarier. And Jaws itself spawned a whole monster film subgenre. I mean, there have been how many sequels? 3 sequels to Jaws, and there are, like, every year I feel like there's another shark movie.
Sharknado.
Yeah, the Sharknado. There was the shark movie with the Mega Shark movie. Like, there's always like the Meg. Yeah, there's always these
Baby
shark movies. Baby Shark.
Do.
So, like, I mean, I think that there's obviously a lot going on for this movie, but other than the technical genius and the cinematic genius of this movie, it's kind of empty, I guess.
Are you going to tell us how you really feel?
Yeah, like, I liked the first part of the narrative is really interesting because really you're given the shark as the villain, but the other villain of the movie is the mayor of the town that refuses to close the beaches even though people have died from the shark because it'll ruin the town's economic.
Not relevant at all right now.
I know, like, it seems very prescient for 2020, where certain governors were not closing down beaches for the economic health of these beach towns. So, yeah, I mean, that was really interesting, sort of the struggle between the police chief and, like, the fact that this shark was killing people.
Hey, Tessa.
Yes.
Would it shock you to know that mayor is reelected?
The mayor in
yeah
town?
He is reelected.
Amnesty Point?
Yeah, he is still there in Jaws 2, so he had to have been reelected.
Oh, God.
Well, I mean, probably reelected.
Don't you? This is like a power move in Amnesty. Yeah, so, like, that was kind of interesting, but the movie changes halfway through. Like, it becomes a different movie about the midway point of the film, and it has what I'm going to call the Moby Dick problem of pacing after the change.
There's like 20-minute scenes about whaling.
Yeah,
there's nothing.
I mean, not about
happens.
whaling, about sharking. Like, if that's what we're gonna call it.
Is there any jumping of the shark?
No. Anyway, the problem is that there's a lot of problems with pacing at the end. I'm not really that interested in narratives about a lot of white men at sea, and so, like, there's like that problem with the narrative. The other thing too is that I just don't think the character work is very good. Like, I think, I'm not looking for depth of character in a monster movie, but I kind of want to care about the characters a little bit. Just give me something to care about. But
don't you think Richard Dreyfuss plays just a great whiny smart aleck dude?
No.
Isn't that great character work?
No, not really. It seemed kind of, I don't know. He was okay. Brody was okay as a character. I liked that he was aquaphobic, which I thought was, like, kind of a funny gag.
Is that Roy Scheider's character?
Roy Scheider's character. I get him confused with the other person. So I thought he was interesting, but, like, all of the victims of the shark were, like, no-named characters who had, like, 2 minutes of dialogue. They were really just sort of, like, there to be eaten by the shark. The shark itself also, and again, I don't like to ask too many questions of a monster movie, but since sharks are real animals, I kind of question whether a shark would be this single-minded about killing people. Like, I know shark attacks happen, but this is like some Mike Myers level, like, animosity towards, I mean, like he can't die, and it just keeps going, and he's like, not gonna give up on trying to get his victim, and like, there's a lot of intentionality about the shark that I just don't find interesting, I guess.
For the record, I have just been alerted that there is an alligator in our neighborhood. And so I wonder if she will have this same attitude tomorrow morning as we walk through the neighborhood.
as the alligator.
So,
Tessa, I will let you know. All right. Jaws 4 is called Jaws 4 The Revenge, and it has the tagline, "This time it's personal." So
Yeah.
before this, before movie 4, it's not personal.
It's not personal yet.
it's also not in 3D either.
Yeah, like,
Back to
I
the
don't
Future
know.
2, we get
like when you look at a monster movie like Godzilla or The Host or something like that, you are the monster stands for something. The monster has some sort of metaphorical significance. The shark just seems like it's there to eat people. Like there's no like connection to like any kind of deeper meaning to what's going on the beach, besides maybe economics, if you really wanted to read that far into it. So again, I would say this movie is overhyped. Maybe if it hadn't been so overhyped, I would have thought it was more clever than it was.
So we've been doing this podcast for a while now, and we talked about a lot of things, but I think this might be a first for us. Would you pass this monkey?
I would. Oh. But here's only to a certain type of person.
Who gets the shark monkey?
This is not a movie for anyone who's actually interested in like having a deep and meaningful movie-going experience. This is a movie specifically if you are a horror film fan and just want to see people eaten by sharks, which it does a good job of, or if you're interested in the history of film. Because this film does, it does hold this spot in film history that's very special and very important. And I think it is worth seeing if you're interested to see where certain directors who are making horror now sort of got some ideas from, who they were interested by. If you want to see the evolution of technology in film, I think this is a really interesting film to watch. But as a film, if you're looking for a good film to watch, something that you're going to really be able to sink your teeth into, maybe not for you.
Okay.
Well, now we know who made Jaws have a 98% on Rotten Tomato.
Well, yeah.
Oh, people are going to hate me for that opinion. I just think it's overhyped, man. Don't tell me it's the greatest.
We're all entitled to be wrong, Tessa.
Yeah. All right. So those were the monkeys for this week. So
not the band.
Not the band. Tune in next week.
Although we will have the monkeys on live as a guest.
That would be so great.
You want to hear a podcast where Sam says nothing the entire podcast?
You can't disappoint a picture.
What are you doing next week? Next episode, Andy? What's your next monkey?
Well, my next monkey is a very dry book by the title of Dune, and I will be making that joke way too many times.
Oh, spicy.
What are you up to this week?
I will be playing, finally, once and for all, the temporarily lost but refound game, Alan Wake.
Ooh. And I will be watching The Expanse, which has been on my list for a very long time. All right. Where can I find you guys? Where can our listeners find you guys on social media?
Well, you can find me on Twitter and Letterboxd at Hebrews Pale Ale.
You can find me on Twitter at Sam_Morris9 and on Letterboxd at ArchieLeach9.
And you can find me on Twitter and Letterboxd at Swela, SWEHLA, Tessa. And you can find us on Twitter at Monkey Backlog. Email us at monkeyoffmybacklog@gmail.com.
Our theme song, Hot Shot by Scott Holmes, can be found at scottholmesmusic.com.
Please rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And have a great week.
Hooray!